Imagine, there was such a dull sound, bang, and a dark little cloud right there. In short, it seems like air defense shot down a drone. Well, not seems like, the guys say it's there.
Many Russians are stunned that Ukrainian drones have now begun targeting Sochi, a city they once thought was untouchable. Until now, the Black Sea resort had been spared from strikes, seen as far from the front lines and safe for the wealthy elite. But that illusion is gone. The message is clear. No place in Russia is beyond Ukraine's reach. A drone attack in Sochi unsettled beachgoers, with the city's airport closed and air defenses active across Krasnodar Krai, according to Russian media.
Imagine, there was such a dull sound, bang, and a dark little cloud right there. In short, it seems like air defense shot down a drone. Well, not seems like, the guys say it's there.
And it's right here. Well, I mean, we saw them. Well, we didn't see it flying, but we heard the sound and this dark spot, this dark cloud, which is still, I mean, it's right over our sea. Imagine that.
A Ukrainian Ram 2X loitering munition struck a Russian vehicle carrying personnel in Donetsk region. A loitering munition is a drone-like weapon that can fly over an area, wait for a target to appear, and then dive in to destroy it. Essentially a mix between a surveillance drone and a missile. It's combining surveillance, precision, and a one-way strike in a single system. Occupied towns and villages are suffering far worse than Donetsk city in the current water crisis. The village of Novaluhansky faces a particularly surreal situation. It has had no water for 3 years, despite being on the shore of one of Ukraine's largest reservoirs. Novaluhansky was on the front line for 8 years, just outside the Russian-occupied Donetsk People's Republic. It fell to Russian forces on 27 July 2022. Despite heavy damage, around 550 out of the original 3,800 inhabitants still live there. The village is located on the western shore of the Vuglaherska Reservoir, one of the largest in Ukraine. The reservoir was created in 1967 to provide water to the now-destroyed Vuglaherska power station on the north shore. In February 2025, the Russian region of Chuhotka was reported to have sponsored the reconstruction of the village's water supply. However, this seems to have been far from the truth. The village's entire water system is said to be over 70 years old and worn out. Much of the village is now wrecked from shell fire sustained over 8 years of conflict. The remaining inhabitants are living in poverty in damaged buildings with no electricity or water, amid no apparent reconstruction activity. Despite being literally on the shore of the reservoir, an inhabitant says that they have had no pumped water since 2022 and are now threatened with the loss of what little water they currently have. An inhabitant has written a plea for help to Russian blogger Tatiana Montian. Hello, Tatiana. I am writing to you because I cannot achieve anything anywhere. The situation with water in the Donetsk People's Republic is well known. But there is another aspect that is hushed up everywhere. There are settlements that do not receive water at all, and it is impossible to achieve anything. Only promises, reports, and excuses. The village of Novaluhansky itself is located on the shore of the Vuglaherska Reservoir. Since its liberation in 2022, the village has not been supplied with water. It was reported that the regional chief had restored the pumping station, but in fact, the station cannot supply water normally for many reasons. These include the lack of storage tanks, which actually exist but are not available because they have not been inspected and certified. They also cite the wear and tear of the water supply networks, which cannot be repaired due to a lack of equipment and materials. At the same time, a multi-kilometer pipeline is currently being laid from the Vuglaherska Reservoir to Yenikiyeve, a city of about 76,000 people, 20 kilometers away, for which, accordingly, funds have been found. In the settlements of Svitlodarsk and Miranivsky, although there are constant repairs to the networks due to breaks, water is supplied and the networks are repaired, and the village of Novaluhansky is of no use to anyone. It stands on the shore of a reservoir full of water, but the residents transport the water themselves, repairing the vehicle at their own expense and exchanging fuel for it with the military. When the pumping of water to Yenikiyeve begins, the water level will drop, and it will no longer be possible to drive a car to the water's edge to collect it. then the people in the village will be left without even this opportunity to provide themselves with water. I am writing to you in the hope that you might be able to raise awareness of this problem and find a solution. Otherwise, they will just report that everything has been restored, but in reality, nothing has changed. I apologize for taking up your time, but I have no choice but to turn to anyone who can somehow highlight and raise awareness of this issue. I tried to contact and write to DPR leader Denis Pushilin's bot on this issue, but accordingly, there was no answer. Novaluhansky's situation appears to be fairly typical. Large cities are being prioritized for the limited water supply, such as it is, along with politically favored recipients, but outlying towns and villages are experiencing a complete loss of water. Lukashenko claims Belarus could inflict unacceptable damage on NATO, stating, "We may not defeat NATO, but we'll give them a good beating."
We are unlikely to defeat the NATO forces there or anyone else. Even the Poles will have 300,000 troops. Our concept is based on the fact that we are ready to inflict unacceptable damage on Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Who will fight against us?
Unacceptable damage.
I just described one of the elements to you. I could tell you more. So they understand that in this case, we might not win this war, but we will give a good beating.
A new memorandum allows the Pentagon to redirect weapons intended for Ukraine back to U.S. stockpiles. This could lead to billions of dollars previously allocated for Ukraine being reallocated to replenish depleted U.S. stockpiles. A memorandum written last month by the Pentagon's head of political affairs gives the Department of Defense the option to redirect certain weapons and equipment intended for Ukraine back to U.S. stockpiles. This is a drastic shift that could result in billions of dollars previously earmarked for the war-torn country being redirected to replenish depleted U.S. stockpiles. The memorandum adds even more uncertainty to the already murky picture of the status of U.S. arms supplies to Ukraine ahead of a possible meeting between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin next week. Even though Trump approved a plan to sell American weapons to Ukraine through NATO, there remains deep concern within the Pentagon about arming Kyiv in the war with Russia at the expense of American stockpiles. This is especially true for items that are in high demand and remain scarce, such as interceptor missiles, air defense systems, and artillery ammunition. Last month, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth suspended the supply of a large quantity of weapons to Ukraine. At the time, Hegseth was acting in accordance with a Pentagon memorandum written by Deputy Secretary of Defense for Policy Elbridge Colby, a known skeptic of arming Ukraine. Shortly after the pause became public, Trump reversed Hegseth's decision and pledged to continue providing defensive weapons to Ukraine in the face of almost daily attacks from Russia. Trump also announced a deal with NATO to provide Ukraine with potentially billions of dollars more in U.S.-made weapons, but paid for by European allies. The Colby Memorandum, approved by Hegseth, classifies U.S. stockpiles into red, yellow, and green categories. The red and yellow categories include weapons that the Pentagon assesses as scarce and now require explicit approval from Hegseth before being sent anywhere else. For example, interceptor missiles for Patriot air defense systems belong to the red category. The arms package that Hegseth suspended last month included dozens of interceptors, but Trump ordered Hegseth to continue supplying them after learning of the suspension. The Ministry of Defense generally complied with this directive to send interceptors. But other weapons in the package were also in the red category, sources familiar with the situation said. It is unclear whether they were delivered, despite the country's constant need for layered air defense to protect its cities from daily Russian missile and drone attacks. Ukrainian officials have long dismissed U.S. concerns about dwindling stockpiles. The Biden administration has often cited this as a reason for not providing certain materials. Sophisticated American-made air defense systems, such as the Patriot system and its interceptors, are Kyiv's most urgent need as Russia has intensified its nightly aerial bombardments. In July, Russia launched a record 6,443 drones and missiles at the country, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. The US and NATO have introduced a mechanism Pearl to accelerate the supply of critical American weapons to Ukraine. The initiative is funded by European members of the alliance and Canada, providing for regular aid packages worth about $500 million each.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.